Hey, what's happening, y'all? It's me coming back at you again with another vid. Alright, this is another video response to the Boxing Librarian. Like I said, there's no qualms between you and I. Between me and him, it's just a respectful response about our, opinion, difference of opinion. That's cool. Checked out his response towards me. Okay, I respect his thoughts on there. I wanted to address a few things. One, he said that I wasn't really sticking to the point. I thought I did, and the reason why I brought up various things pertaining to my core argument is because I recall in one of your last few videos you said that why is Anthony Joshua has to be in a situation where he's got to fight every dangerous opponent after dangerous opponent while Wilder doesn't have to by certain fan standards. And I was responding to that in various videos and giving you my position on that. So that's where I was talking about. Now, if you want to talk about the unification aspects, okay, where fans were calling for unifications back then, I also addressed that as well. And what I meant by addressing that, I said that back then you have to understand is that regular spectators or fans like myself and you, we didn't have a platform where we can express our opinions or call for fights that we wanted to see back in those days, from the late 80s up to the early 90s. Okay, well, not until the early 90s, I'm not sure, American Online platform, the American Online access tool, I'm not sure that the UK had their own version of American Online AOL. I think you guys did, or you had something equivalent to that. I don't know, help me out on that. But the reason why I brought up the American Online as a one platform where people can go and chat and they have various discussions, because there was various chat rooms back then where you can go to a recreation sports section where you talk about all type of sports like boxing, the NBA basketball, the gridiron football or soccer football, you name it. That was the only platform you can go where you can express your concerns on a live format before YouTube, before Facebook, and before Instagram, Twitter, before all those social media platforms took place, where everything can be, where those media platforms gave people, end users, the access to express their train of thought, and it gets across a wider audience. Back then, when we had AOL, it was very difficult to do that. I mean, you have minimal access to blogs and whatnot, and many people don't have the time to search for blogs and look for the people's opinion back then. It was all through a live chat, and that was it. And those things don't get archived as you will see in on YouTube or Daily Motion or anyone else. So that's where I expressed in my video, and about that. Okay, so the only logical thing I could do is refer to the writers, because they're the ones who express their opinions in their articles, and that's why I refer to them. Okay, and I know you said that writers are not fans. Well, I disagree with that, and here's why. Because back then, when fights had to be called, when fights were demanded in some degree, it pretty much, the writers had the tools to do it. They had the power to do it because they had access to a platform where they can get their opinions across, and it reaches out to a wider audience. They had the power to do that, and now today you and I have the power to do that through this social media platform of YouTube. Okay, now the reason why I brought up stories, which I think that probably that kind of made things a little bit confusing, is because back then, when we talked about fights, what we wanted to see, we could only rely on news articles. We could rely on live shows like ESPN Sports Center or the Ring magazine, or other articles like where I'm from in Los Angeles, the LA Times, whatnot, sports writers. We can only rely on that piece of information. When we get that information, that's when we can talk about what fights we wanted to see. And speaking of what fights we wanted to see, I forgot to bring up the Miguel Angel Gonzalez and Oscar De La Hoya situation. Back at lightweight, people wanted, after that unification bout that De La Hoya beat Ruiz, people were calling for Miguel Angel Gonzalez to fight Oscar De La Hoya as well. That was the fight people wanted to see, another unification bout. But no, other people are arguing for Julio Cesar Chavez, and people are ridiculing Oscar to step it up further. So that was one that nobody wanted. that people were calling for it as well. But fortunately, that didn't happen because Miguel Angel Gonzalez was the WBC lightweight champion. He moved up to 140 and tried to take on challenges there. So he was a very good lightweight champion, very great lightweight champion, but he didn't. I mean, he had moderate success as a 140-pound fighter, but it is what it is. So that was the point I was trying to bring up in my video response. Okay, so I get where you're coming from with this whole situation with unifications supersedes mandatory. Again, I think the reason why this whole situation is becoming a troublesome to you is because it all started with the Julius Indongo effect. Now, before I get into that, you proposed a question: how many fans have demanded Keith Thurman to fight a unification bout over Sean Porter? Well, to answer your question is none. The reason why is because nobody was really keen on the idea of unifications, maybe except for Blood Boxing and myself, but we didn't really push it to that limit because back as boxing has really deteriored over the years, particularly with the whole Mayweather and Pacquiao situation, a lot of fighters were avoiding a lot of fighters like a plague. It was terrible, and you know that, and you expressed your contempt towards why the best weren't fighting each other. It just got so bad to the point that I don't care what it is, okay? If it's unification or not, just fight the best. That's all it was. So after the Mayweather and Pacquiao crisis, or during that crisis, I should say, it was that none of the guys wanted to fight each other because of the money disputes, over promotional disputes, or one guy's trying to control one situation over the other. It was just so bad. So people were desperate to get good fights after the whole Mayweather and Pacquiao situation blowing over. So that's why, if to answer your questions, you're not going to see any videos where people were calling out Keith Thurman to fight any unification bout. So you don't have to do that. But what I will say is this, though. After the Julius Indongo situation, and I call this the Julius Indongo effect, so this is what's happening. Julius Indongo has set a tone where he's a fighter who could come out of nowhere from Namibia, a fighter from Namibia who was an Olympian, by the way, comes out of nowhere and scores a knockout upset win over Edward Trojanowski, and then he later unifies with Ricky Burns, and then he's in another unification bout. So he's in 3 straight fights. He's fighting champions back to back to back in unification bout against Terrence Crawford. And the reason why this whole unification versus mandatory, unification supersede mandatory situation, it all began with Julius Indongo, but it also goes to the fact that Julius Indongo and Terrence Crawford were saying they wanted to fight each other next for a little bit before the Ricky Burns fight. All right, and his manager and promoter, co-promoter, Nestor Tobias has confirmed that. Julius Indongo's promoter, he's confirmed that. And after the Ricky Burns fight, they expressed that interest to fighting each other again, and us fans were so happy. It's like, you know what, we're close to getting an undisputed champion, so this is our chance. So let's go ahead and try to call for it. Let's see what happens. Of course, the Lipinets situation got in the way. A lot of people were upset about that, including myself, because why would you get in the way of a situation where 2 fighters and 2 champions who want to unify and fight each other now? Okay, of course, this is where Darrell Peoples, the president of the IBF, had came out about 2 or 3 years ago. He even made this comment. He said it himself. The interview is up on YouTube. Take a look at it, where he said himself that unification supersedes mandatories. That's what he said. It's also within the IBF's ruling and procedures. I think it's within the WBA and the WBC as well, and I think the WBO. So they all the sanctioned bodies have that same standard. They have that same ruling, and that's where people are pretty much are riding on with that. And I understand your frustration because it seems like to your perspective, people are going to use that standard when it suits their narrative when it comes to certain fighters. I get that. I totally do. But what I'm saying is that I'm willing to understand the situation. If the fight can't happen right away because a certain mandatory must be met, okay, fine, get it out of the way. What the champions need to do is come together, come to an agreement where they'll get an inner fight in between, and then they'll meet each other in the fall. Not the fall, whatever suitable date that make sure they're both parties are happy about. So yeah, I understand where you're coming from. I hope I've addressed what you were talking about in your response towards me. So nothing but respect. Let me know what your thoughts about this, and I am out. So.